Welcome back to Hidden Emotional Struggles, the podcast where we dive deep into the feelings we often keep to ourselves. I'm your host, and today we're exploring something that touches so many lives, yet rarely gets the attention it deserves: the silent weight of feeling like a burden to others. If you've ever caught yourself thinking, "I'm just bothering people," or felt guilty for asking for help, or worried that your presence somehow makes life harder for those around you, you're not alone. In fact, what you're experiencing has a name in psychology: perceived burdensomeness. And today, we're going to understand exactly what it is, where it comes from, and most importantly, how to break free from its grip. Let me start with a story that might sound familiar. Sarah, a 34-year-old teacher, recently went through a difficult divorce. Her friends and family have been incredibly supportive, constantly checking in, offering help with her kids, bringing over meals. But instead of feeling grateful, Sarah finds herself overwhelmed with guilt. She lies awake at night thinking, "I'm such a burden. They have their own problems. I should be handling this better on my own." Sound familiar? This internal dialogue is the hallmark of perceived burdensomeness, that persistent, painful belief that your very existence makes life harder for others. It's the voice that whispers, "You're too much, too needy, too complicated." And here's the thing, it's not just in your head. It's a real psychological phenomenon that researchers have been studying for years. The concept of perceived burdensomeness was formally introduced by psychologist Thomas Joyner as part of his interpersonal theory of suicide. Now, before you worry, we're not talking about suicidal thoughts today. We're focusing on the much more common experience of simply feeling like you're a burden in everyday life. Joyner defined it as the belief that one's existence burdens family, friends, and society, coupled with the perception that others would be better off if one were gone. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about actual burdensomeness. This is about perception. It's about the stories we tell ourselves, often completely disconnected from reality. Research shows that people experiencing perceived burdensomeness consistently underestimate how much others value their presence and overestimate how much trouble they cause. So where does this feeling come from? Why do some of us carry this invisible weight while others seem to move through life confident in their worth? The roots run deep, and understanding them is the first step toward healing. Let's start with self-esteem. If you grew up hearing messages like "don't be so needy" or "you're being dramatic," your brain learned to equate needing help with being a problem. Low self-esteem creates this lens through which we view every interaction as potential evidence of our unworthiness. Then there's perfectionism, that double-edged sword. Perfectionists often believe that asking for help is admitting failure. If I can't handle everything myself, I must be flawed. This creates an impossible standard where any need for support becomes proof of inadequacy. Childhood experiences play a massive role here too. If you had caregivers who were overwhelmed, stressed, or emotionally unavailable, you might have learned early that your needs were inconvenient. Maybe you were parentified, forced to take care of others' emotional needs before your own. These experiences wire our brains to believe that our natural human needs are somehow wrong or burdensome. From an attachment theory perspective, this often stems from insecure attachment patterns. If your early relationships taught you that love is conditional on being low maintenance, you'll carry that blueprint into every relationship you enter. You'll constantly scan for signs that you're being too much, too needy, too human. Mental health conditions can intensify these feelings exponentially. Depression whispers lies about your worth. Anxiety magnifies every social interaction, making you hyper-aware of potentially bothering others. Trauma can leave you feeling fundamentally broken and therefore burdensome. Cultural factors matter too. We live in a society that celebrates independence and self-reliance while stigmatizing vulnerability. Social media shows us curated versions of everyone else's life where they appear to have it all together, never needing help, never struggling. This creates unrealistic expectations about what normal human neediness looks like. And here's something fascinating from research. This operates as what psychologists call a transactional model. Your belief that you're a burden changes how you behave, which can actually create the very outcomes you fear. When you constantly apologize, withdraw, or refuse help, people might start to feel frustrated or confused, which then confirms your belief that you're difficult to be around. Now, let's talk about breaking free from this pattern. I want to share 6 practical, research-backed steps that can help you rebuild your sense of self-worth and recognize your true value in relationships. Step 1. Rebuild your self-worth from the ground up. This isn't about positive affirmations or fake it till you make it thinking. This is about fundamentally changing how you relate to yourself. Start by developing self-compassion. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend going through a hard time. When you catch yourself being self-critical, ask, "Would I talk to someone I love this way?" Practice self-forgiveness for being human. Having needs isn't a character flaw, it's what makes you human. Needing connection, support, and care is as natural as needing food or water. Every single person on this planet has needed help at some point, and deserving that help doesn't depend on what you can offer in return. Step 2. Name the feeling when it shows up. Awareness is the first step toward change. When you notice that familiar wave of "I'm bothering people" or "I'm too much," pause and label it. I'm having that perceived burdensomeness feeling again. This simple act of naming creates distance between you and the feeling. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. Step 3, and this is crucial, open up to trusted people about these feelings. I know this feels counterintuitive. The last thing you want to do when you feel like a burden is talk about feeling like a burden. But here's what research shows. When we share these fears with people who care about us, we almost always discover that our perception doesn't match their reality. Most people are honored when someone trusts them enough to be vulnerable. Your openness creates deeper connection, not distance. Step 4. Learn to set healthy boundaries. This might sound backwards, but boundaries are actually the antidote to feeling burdensome. When you clearly communicate your limits and needs, you eliminate the guesswork for others. Instead of constantly worrying about whether you're asking too much, you create clear frameworks for interaction. Say things like, "I need support with this, but I understand if you're not available right now. Can you help me think of other options?" This shows respect for both your needs and theirs. Step 5. Consider professional support. Sometimes these patterns run so deep that we need professional help to rewire them. Cognitive behavioral therapy can help you identify and challenge the thought patterns that maintain perceived burdensomeness. Dialectical behavior therapy teaches skills for managing intense emotion, improving relationships. There's no shame in getting professional help. It's actually one of the most self-compassionate things you can do. Step 6. Focus on healing the root causes. If your perceived burdensomeness stems from childhood experiences, trauma, or mental health conditions, addressing those underlying issues is crucial. This might involve trauma therapy, medication for depression or anxiety, or working through attachment issues. Healing isn't linear, and it takes time, but every step forward changes your relationship with yourself and others. Remember, the goal isn't to become someone who never needs anything from others. That's not health, that's isolation. The goal is to develop a realistic, compassionate understanding of what it means to be human in relationship with other humans. We all have seasons of giving and seasons of receiving. Sometimes you'll be the one offering support, sometimes you'll be the one needing it. That's how healthy relationships work. Now, I want to share some specific resources that can support you on this journey. These 6 books have been game changers for people working through perceived burdensomeness and related struggles. First up, Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff. This book revolutionizes how you treat yourself during difficult times. Neff introduces 3 core components of self-compassion: self-kindness instead of self-judgment, common humanity instead of isolation, and mindfulness instead of over-identification with painful thoughts. She provides practical exercises to develop each component, helping you build an internal voice of support rather than criticism. What makes this particularly powerful for perceived burdensomeness is how it directly challenges the harsh self-talk that maintains these feelings. Second, Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. This book breaks down attachment theory in incredibly practical terms, helping you understand how your early relationships shaped your current patterns. If you tend to feel like a burden, you might have anxious attachment patterns that make you hyper-vigilant about burdening others. The book provides specific strategies for developing more secure attachment behaviors, like communicating needs directly instead of hoping others will guess, and learning to trust that healthy people want to support you. Third, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. Brown's research on shame and vulnerability directly addresses the core of perceived burdensomeness. She explains how shame thrives on secrecy and silence, making you believe you're fundamentally flawed. The book offers 10 guideposts for wholehearted living, including cultivating self-compassion, embracing vulnerability as strength, and letting go of perfectionism. Her work shows how vulnerability actually deepens relationships rather than burdening them. And finally, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. If trauma underlies your perceived burdensomeness, this book is essential reading. Van der Kolk explains how trauma literally rewires your brain and body, often creating persistent feelings of being fundamentally wrong or damaged. He outlines various trauma healing approaches, from traditional therapy to body-based interventions like yoga and EMDR. Understanding trauma's impact on your nervous system can be incredibly validating and point toward effective healing approaches. Each of these books offers a different lens for understanding and healing perceived burdensomeness. You don't need to read them all at once. Choose the one that resonates most with your experience and start there. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a challenge. Not the kind that adds pressure to your life, but the gentle kind that invites growth. This week, I challenge you to notice one moment when that perceived burdensomeness feeling shows up. Maybe it's when you want to text a friend but worry you're being annoying. Maybe it's when you need help with something but hesitate to ask. Instead of pushing the feeling down or automatically believing it, try this. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what would I tell someone I love who is having this exact thought? Then, and this is the brave part, consider taking one small action despite the feeling. Send the text, ask for the help, share the struggle, notice what actually happens versus what you feared would happen. Remember, if you're struggling with thoughts of self-harm or suicide, please reach out for help immediately. Call 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. They're available 24/7 and trained to help. You are not a burden to them. Helping people in crisis is literally their purpose and calling. Your existence matters. Your needs are valid. Your struggles don't make you broken. They make you human. And being human means you deserve love, support, and care, not because of what you can give others, but simply because you exist. Thank you for joining me today on Hidden Emotional Struggles. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear these words. Sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is help each other feel less alone. Until